attacked by an enemy piece or pawn. The king's special features. Check. The king is the only piece that has no right to move to a square attacked by an enemy piece or pawn. It cannot be placed under attack. Here white, having the move, can play. Or
king takes b1.
But 1. Raja Pukul b2 is impossible since the king would come under attack from black's bishop on c3. Neither is 1. Raja Pukul c3 possible since the c3 square is under the control of black's knight on b1. The b3, d3, d2 and d1 square are taboo for the king, all of them being under black's control.
Bishop takes b2.
Another special feature of the king is that in the case of an attack it has to be defended immediately. An attack against the king is called check, designated in notation by a plus sign plus. In this diagram white has just played 1. Coup de e5 second, attacking simultaneously black's king and rook. According to the rules of the game the king cannot be left under attack or, in chess terminology, under check. No matter how highly black values his rook, he is compelled to leave it to its fate, because the king's safety comes first. After
king f6.
Black takes the king away from attack, white plays
knight takes d7, check,
and soon wins. There are 3 methods of defense against check, and all are possible in the situation in this diagram. To capture the piece declaring check. To move away from check, i.e., to shift the king to a square not attacked by the opponent, for instance.
King g8.
To cover oneself from check, i.e., to place one's own piece or a pawn between the king and the piece declaring check.
Rook e7.
However, it is impossible to cover the king from a check declared by a knight.
Queen takes d7.
In this diagram black's knight has declared check. White has only 2 methods of defense: to move the king to another square, for instance, or to capture the knight.
Bishop takes c5.
Since the king cannot be placed on a square under attack or left under check.
King a2.
b2, c2, c3, c4, b4. The king is the only piece that cannot be captured. In the course of a game all the pieces and pawns can be taken but the kings remain on the board to the very end of the game. Finally, as distinguished from all the other pieces and pawns, a king cannot check the opposing king. Indeed, it cannot attack the opposing king because it could do this only from a square adjoining the former. That square is under attack by the opposing king and is forbidden by the rules. The kings must always be separated by at least 1 square. An impossible situation. Fully possible situation. Fully possible situation. Fully possible situation. Fully possible situation. Checkmate. Up to now we have been looking at examples of defense against declared check. Checkmate or simply mate is the term used for a check against which there is no defense. With the declaration of mate the ultimate goal of the game is achieved. The side that declares mate wins the game. In most cases the game does not reach the stage of mate. One of the opponents, seeing that mate is inevitable, resigns admitting his defeat. In notation the sign for checkmate is hash. The diagram here shows a typical example of a mate by the queen with the aid of the king. Black's king cannot capture the queen that declared mate since it would fall under the attack of white's king. At the same time the white queen on the d7 square deprives the opposing king of all the squares for retreat c8, c7, e7, e8.
Rook d8, mate.
In this diagram we see a typical example of mate on the last rank. Black has neither a piece capable of capturing the enemy rook, nor a square where the black king can hide from its lethal check, and black's own pawns prevent the king from getting away. Castling. A simultaneous move of the king and rook of the same color is permitted once in the course of play for each player. It is considered one move and is called castling. Here it is shown how it is done. The king moves 2 squares in the direction of the rook, after which the rook passes above the king and occupies the square adjoining the king. Castling on the side of the queen's flank is called castling long, and on the side of the king's flank castling short. In the diagrammed position white castled long and black castled short. Castling is impossible in the following cases. A. The king or the rook have already made a move. B. The king is under check. C. As a result of castling the king comes under check. D. A square the king has to pass across is under check by an enemy piece. E. Other pieces stand between the king and the rook. Thus, in this diagram white can castle only short, and black only long. Castling enables a player to transfer the king away to a safe place quickly and bring the rook into play. This is a very important and necessary move to mobilize one's forces. Castling short is designated in notation as rocade pendek, and castling long as rocade panjang. Stalemate. A situation in which the king of the side having the move is not under check but has no place to go, and none of that side's other pieces or pawns can move, is called stalemate. A game in which stalemate occurs is considered a draw. If it is white's move in the diagram, then white plays.
Rook takes f8, mate.
However, if black is to move, then despite white's huge advantage the game ends in a draw since black is stalemated. Black's pawns are blocked, the king cannot move because all the possible squares are under the control of white's queen and the rook on e8, the knight move would place black's king in check. In situations with a small number of pieces the side that has the advantage and is playing for a win has to take care that the opponent should not be stalemated. The weaker side is frequently very resourceful in seeking ways and means of sacrificing its pieces and forcing stalemate. If it were black's move in the diagram, then black would capture the white bishop and easily win with an extra queen. But it is white's move and with it comes the first surprise.
Bishop c2, check.
A double attack. White sacrifices the bishop. Black cannot reject the sacrifice because in that case the black queen is lost, which makes the win impossible. Hence,
Queen takes c2
is obligatory. Then there follows
knight e3, check.
another sacrifice and a double attack. Once more the black queen has to be saved but after
Bishop takes e3.
White's king has nowhere to move. This is stalemate. Other kinds of draws. Perpetual check. A game is also drawn if a. Neither side has sufficient material advantage to win, if one of the players has only a king left while his opponent has only a king, or a king plus a bishop or knight, or each of them has only a king plus a bishop or knight, or both have a king plus a bishop, both bishops moving along squares of the same color. B. A player declares that in the last 50 or more moves there haven't been any captures and not a single pawn has moved. She demands that the game be stopped and called a draw, the 50 moves rule. C. The same position occurs on the board 3 or more times recurrence. In this case the player whose next move would cause the same position arising for the third or more time has the right, instead of making a move on the board, to declare his intentions to make that move to the opponent or umpire. The game is stopped, the claim checked, and if correct the game declared a draw. Frequently the 3-time repetition of a position arises as result of perpetual check, i.e., a series of checks following one after another from which the opposing king cannot escape. From the diagrammed position there followed
King g8, Queen g5, check. King h8, Queen f6, check.
the position on the board is repeated.
King g8, Queen g5, check. King H8.
And now white, without making his move, asked the umpire to declare the game a draw following the third recurrence of the position after.
Queen F6. Check.
In the diagrammed position, black declares perpetual check, continuously attacking white's king with the rook from the A1 and A2 squares. White has at his disposal many more squares than in the preceding example, but he has nowhere to hide from the checks. A draw is unavoidable. In practice, the two players agree to a draw without appealing to the umpire to establish the 3-time recurrence of a position or to apply the 50-move rule.